everybody, and welcome back to the Alaskan Mancave. Today we have a special project. The customer brought in a gun that he just had painted and he wasn't happy with the way it came out.
What? Not happy with the way it came out and wants to paint it again? This is madness.
Madness. This is Sparta!
It's not a bad paint job. Looks pretty decent. He really wasn't too pleased with the crest. He wanted to see a little bit more three-dimensionality, and I think he wants a little bit darker background so the actual Spartan helmet stands out a little bit. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to re-stencil the entire, we're going to have to repaint the entire gun. Obviously, because Cerakote will not stick to cured Cerakotes. We're going to have to blast this off and start from scratch. We're going to paint it black. We're going to apply some stencils. We're going to paint the crest red, and we're going to apply a stencil to mask that back off. And we'll spray the rest of the gun with the burnt bronze. And then while the burnt bronze is still wet, I'm going to take some midnight bronze and I'm going to kind of marble it in along here to give it a little bit more depth. And then for the actual helmet, I'm going to try mixing in a little bit of gold with the burnt bronze. That way this helmet area will be a little bit lighter than the rest, and hopefully it'll kind of give it a little bit more of an accent. So, and then when we'll flash cure that, come back and dirty it up with the black and do a little thinner white and Scotch Brite, and we'll get this thing battle worn out, looking real good. The battle wear will go over the crest. So basically before I spray the battle wear, I'm going to actually pull my red and my black stencils off, so the battle wear will go over top of the entire project versus where the crest is sticking out on top of the battle wear. So I think this is going to be a fun project. It's going to definitely be a challenge to get this masking right. You know, the pressure's on because he's already had it done once and was not happy, so I got to do my very best here to hit a home run. So let's get started and see what we can come up with. All right, the colors we're going to use for this project are gold, burnt bronze, midnight bronze, graphite black, and Marine Corps red. All right, we've got our graphite black all mixed up. We're going to go ahead and paint these parts.
I'm going to make sure to paint the inside of the upper and lower receiver well, because when I put these together for stenciling, I won't be taking them apart for the other layers of paint.
Now that our parts are tack free and mostly cooled down, we can begin to apply the stencils. And so I'm going to start out by applying the stencils that will give the depth to the crest, and then we can spray it with a little bit of red. Then we'll be able to mask it to keep the red from getting painted over when we do our bronze. And I'm trimming the excess away from my transfer paper just because I'm dealing with three-dimensional surfaces, and it'll just make it lay in just a little bit easier. But the nice part about this stencil, there's a lot of randomness to it, so if it does move around a little bit, it'll look just fine. We're going to go ahead and get this transferred over. And this is a pretty intricate stencil, so I'll have to take my times so I don't damage it in the process of trying to lay it. So we're going to start pressing that in. Not all of it's going to want to stick at once. Now that we got the bulk of it down, we'll be able to make it go where we want it to go. It will be a little bit more difficult to transfer this one just because we're not really able to press it in like we normally would be able to and then peel it off. So we'll just have to take a little patience and work through it. And this is where it's going to get a little bit more difficult because of the voids. But like I said, be patient and you'll be able to work through it. And just remember, this is a random pattern, so everything that happens is good. I mean, you could almost go back to Bob Ross, you know. Look, they're birds now. Just happy accidents. But again, We are going to battle wear over these, so having a little bit of error isn't gonna be a bad thing at all. It's gonna, pretty much anything we do here is gonna look good. There, I think that stencil laid in pretty well. Now we'll just flip it over. We'll put the dust cover on and we'll lay that stencil down.
This is going to lay down exactly the same as it did on the other side, other than it'll overlap our dust cover. Now we're going to have to cut the dust cover loose so we can remove it when we paint the red. Once we get the dust cover off, we'll take one of our extra sets of stencils we made and we'll use that to fill in the areas that are up underneath the dust cover. This will give the project an overall more complete look. These stencils have laid in really nice, and we're ready to take this over to the paint booth and start spraying our red. I've set up my spray gun to spray a small round pattern by turning my fan completely off and adjusting my paint accordingly. And once the red is done, we're going to put it back in the oven to flash cure, and then we can start masking off the red areas so we can be ready to spray the bronze. To mask off the red, I've cut a stencil to go from the helmet to the edge of the crest, but I found it easier to cut it up into smaller pieces so it would lay down over the three-dimensional surface just a little bit better. It is a little bit more tedious, but it makes the job a little bit easier. We'll continue to piece this in until you have all the areas covered between the helmet and the edge of the crest without overlapping the stencil on the black. And then we'll have to repeat the process again on the other side. And once both sides are done, we'll look everything over once more and we'll get it into the paint booth and we'll start spraying our bronze.
There, we have our red masked off, including our dust cover. And you have the other side masked as well, so now we can go ahead and start mixing our bronze and getting this sprayed. And you can see our three colors. We have midnight bronze, burnt bronze, and this is the gold mixed 3-to-1 with the burnt bronze.
Since this is our first coat of bronze on the handguard, we'll want to make sure we do a good thorough coat. And then while this coat is still wet, we'll start marbling in with the midnight bronze, give it a little bit more depth, and then we'll repeat the process again on the upper and lower receiver. And then, even though it's not shown, I took another spray gun and I sprayed the helmet area while the other areas were still wet with the gold.
Okay, the moment of truth. We can start peeling these stencils off and see how we did. Yeah, that looks good. The beauty of it is any imperfection now can be covered with the battleware. Lots of very careful stencil placement, but it's looking like it was worth it. I'm really happy with the way that black is coming through. I really think that this is going to give the look that our customer originally wanted when he took it to the first guy to paint it.
Okay, now we're ready to start spraying the black on for the battleware. And when we do this, we're going to want to make sure we spray it on thick in some areas and thin in others. That way, to get the battle-worn effect, it won't take as much scuffing to do. And that way, you don't have to worry so much about scuffing through the other layers of paint. Then we'll get it in the oven for a flash cure, and we're only going to go for about 8 minutes at 180 degrees. That way, the paint doesn't cure too much, so it can still be scuffed off easily.
All right, for scuffing this up and doing our battleware, I've got some Scotch-Brites, and I've got some rags, and my acetone. Well, here's our first piece. I'm going to get started on this. I'm going to start with a little bit of Scotch-Brite and just see what it does. I'll show you what it does if you put just a little bit of acetone on it. That'll be where we'll pick up our brighter areas.
And when you're using the acetone, you want to start out really light scuffing just to see how much comes off, because the acetone can really speed up the way the black comes off. So start out really light and you can increase pressure from there. And then this is just kind of a rinse and repeat process. Just take it slow, because you can always take more off. You can't put it back on. Well, I've got this piece pretty much the way I want it, so I'm going to set this one aside and I'll repeat the process on the upper and lower receiver. Alright, let's see what we get with this. I'm just going to start out just lightly scuffing this and increase the pressure if needed, but you got to be careful with any of the sharp edges and things not to inadvertently scuff too much off and go through to your base coat or even back to bare metal.
That's really starting to look good. That's looking really nice. Let's look at it with the dust cover.
Well, now we can start working the other side in the same fashion. We'll just start out working it with a little bit of acetone on our Scotch-Brite and rubbing it pretty lightly, and then keep going until we get it the way we want it. For some of the tight spots and hard to get to areas, I found that using a Q-tip works pretty good to get some of those tight spots. And you work it the same as you would with your Scotch-Brite, just a little bit of acetone and then lightly rub on it, and then if you need more pressure, you can always add more. When I'm pretty much done with the Scotch-Brite, I like to come back in with a rag with a little bit of acetone, and then I'll pretty much wipe just the areas where I want it to be the brightest and take just a little bit more of the haze off of it from the black. It works pretty good, and it isn't abrasive at that point, so you don't have to worry as much about scuffing back through your base coat. And then just repeat all of these techniques until you get the look that you're going for. And I'm pretty much right there with where I'm trying to get. It's looking really good. I'm happy with the way the whole project is turning out.
All right, guys, the gun's sat in the oven for a couple hours. It's fully cured out. It's looking really good. You ready to see it? I think the battle wear came out on this. The crest came out great. I like the fact that the helmet has a little bit more contrast than the background of the rest of the parts. I think this came out really, really well. Battle wear looks consistent pretty well on all the pieces. So overall, I think this is a success. I'm really thinking that the customer is going to see this and be really relieved, and I think he's going to love it. So thanks for watching. I hope you've enjoyed this. Hope maybe you learned something from it. The biggest part of doing this kind of work is just being really patient and meticulous, making sure you get everything exactly the way you want it before you move on. So again, thanks for watching, and stay tuned. We got more stuff coming.